So Trev, we like to have some fun with this and this part of the show, and we're going to do that here, talking about game wreckers. Game wreckers, those guys that take over a game, those guys that just say, "Boy, that guy just went out there and the plays he made and the things he did, we couldn't beat them because that guy took the game over." You look at games that Notre Dame's had big wins this year. They've had game wreckers step up. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price against Texas A&M. Game wreckers. Riley Leonard making throws to Jaden Greathouse and Jaden Harrison and Jeremiah Love against Louisville. You think of, you could just kind of throw Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price into like every game as game wreckers, but we've seen Mitchell Evans step up. We see, Jaden Greathouse step up at times and just be that guy. Bo Collins making a huge play late in the game. We haven't seen a lot of that from the past game. Offensive linemen, we've seen guys just come out and play great games and just really be game wreckers. And those are the things you need to win these type of games, right? You look at the Indiana game. Who are the game wreckers in that game? Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard, not just because he made some big plays, which he did, but he saved -8s and turned them into +8s in that game. That's completely changing the course of the game. Indiana's used to getting those sacks, getting those incompletions, making it 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 16, 2nd and 17, and instead he's jumping up in the air, throwing off of his, throwing not even on the ground, hitting guys and they're getting 4, 5, 6 yards, and that changes the game. And then, of course, at the end of the game, they need to make a big play. He goes out and makes a big play, hits Jordan Faison over the top, hits that strike to Jaden Greathouse on 3rd down to move the chains, set up a score. You had game wreckers step up and make plays. So you need those to win. Georgia needs those to win. That's what determines these games. Who are those guys going to be for Notre Dame? We're going to have some fun here, and we're going to talk about who we think are going to be the game wreckers for Notre Dame. This is meant to be honest analysis, but as far as predicting them, that part's meant to be a little bit fun. We don't know if they will or won't step up and make those plays, but these are the guys that we think have the best chance. We'll give 3 each. Trev, I'll let you start. Who are the guys that you predict to be the game wreckers for Notre Dame? Who's your number 1 guy?
If we're going 3 each, first one for me is going to be Mitchell Evans at tight end. I think the tight ends are going to play a key role in this in the run and the pass game. And the reason why I put him first is for that reason. Mitchell Evans is going to have to make an impact in both phases. And he's going to have to accept that role. There's been some question marks sometimes throughout the season when he's asked to be a run blocker. Is he that much into it as opposed to when he's running, a burst corner that's going to score a touchdown or something, right? 88's going to have to bring his A game, right? He's going to have to step up in a big way because as much as I want to believe that a perimeter receiver at Notre Dame is going to break out, we just haven't seen it all season, but we've seen Mitchell Evans be a game changer this year, more consistently than what we've seen from the outside receivers. My second one, and this one's, it's going to be fairly obvious. It's still going to be Jeremiah Love because I'm a big believer that in the biggest moments and in the biggest games, you need your dudes to be dudes, and you don't have more of a dude on offense than Jeremiah Love. You brought it up all the time about how his best game in high school was the state championship game. Well, buddy, this is it. This is your now state championship game. I guess technically last week was the actual state championship game.
Semifinals, baby. That's semifinals.
Yeah. But it's one of those where it's got to be like, hey, look, man, Georgia's going to do a lot. And some of the what builds players' legacies is why does everybody love Ashton Genty? Everybody knows where the ball is going when they play Boise State. People just can't stop it. Indiana knew where the ball was going. Yeah, they knew Jeremiah Love was getting the football. It wasn't a mystery.
At the -2, everybody in the stadium knew who was getting the ball in that play.
Yeah, 100%. And so you're going to have your number 1 player on offense be a guy. And the last one for me, and I think it's going to be fairly obvious, it's got to be Riley Leonard. Man, the thing that has plagued Notre Dame in big games before in the past has been lack of elite level quarterback play. Yep. And I'm not saying that Riley Leonard has to go out and throw for 300 and rush for 100 and do his best Jalen Milroe impression. But I love that. But what he needs to do is be a leader of this offense and be a leader of this team and go out and make the plays when needed. That's what Notre Dame didn't have in 2018 against Clemson is when Julian Love gets hurt, you're going to have somebody on the offensive side of the ball that says, hey, defense is kind of reeling right now. We got to step up and make some plays. Didn't have it. In 2020, same thing. Really in all the big games that Notre Dame lost, outside of probably the 05 Bush push game when Brady Quinn had a pretty darn good game against a pretty good USC defense, Outside of that, the quarterback play has been lacking. Against Ohio State last year, Hartman had to step up and make some plays, and it fell short.
Yeah.
And so Riley
and
Leonard
Kyle McCord made them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%.
I mean, they shut Kyle McCord down for 55 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But when the game was on the line, he made a 4th down completion. He made another 3rd down completion. Then, of course, he throws the rope up the seam on 3rd and 19 to move the chains. Like when you talk about game record, Trev, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's not about throw for 350.
Yeah.
You got to make the big plays, the money plays.
Yep. It's my game records to me is who can have the most impact. It's not who has the flashiest stats like that. I mean, when you look at Mitchell Evans, his stats might not be the most flashy. He might not catch a touchdown, but you go through and it's like, how many of his receptions went for first downs? How many of his receptions got the ball past the 50-yard line and got them into scoring position to let Riley Leonard, to let a Jeremiah Love do what they do best, right? And so for me, that's what it's going to come down to. Riley Leonard, I said this last week, Riley Leonard came to Notre Dame for a reason, and this is it. You didn't come to Notre Dame to beat Texas A&M in week 1. You didn't come to Notre Dame to beat Louisville on September 28th. You didn't do it to beat Indiana at home in the play. You did it to beat Georgia. The staff has the utmost confidence in him to bring him in and basically slay the dragon that they haven't been able to. And so he's got to be the biggest game wrecker on the field. That's why I saved him for last, man.
I'm going to kind of have him first. I'm not going to repeat the other two because you nailed those, but I do think it's worth us both having him because I don't think you can win a game like this unless your defense holds Georgia to 6 points and which I don't think is going to look. This is not this isn't the 2021 or 2022 Georgia offense. It's not, but it's still good enough to score. But you're not going to hold them to 6 points, 7 points, 10 points for the entire game. So you're going to have to score, enough to go win this game. You're just not going to shut Georgia down like that. At least you can't anticipate. Look, Notre Dame can shut Georgia down and hold them to 10 points or less. We've seen them do games like that. Georgia's capable of doing it at Notre Dame. What I'm saying is you can't expect that. You can't anticipate that, that sort of outrageous performance. You have to assume that Georgia's going to bring their A game on offense as well. And you're going to have to be able to score. And unless your defense just plays out of this world, you're going to have to move the ball. You're going to have to score points to win this game, 24-27, maybe 30 points to win this game. And you're not going to do that unless Riley Leonard is a game wrecker. What does that look like? Does it mean he's got to throw for 320 and run for $120? No, but if he does, it's not only going to win this game, they're going to blow Georgia out. It's not, I think his highest output of the season. I mean, what is Riley Leonard's highest output of the season? It's not a whole lot. Let's see here. Passing, Riley Leonard. Highest output of the season is 229 against Stanford. Right. So I'm not all right, he's going to have to throw for 320 if you need him to throw for 320 lose it to win this game, means stuff went really wrong in a lot of other areas. And I don't see that happening. It's more about, be 65 to 70% completions, get your 200 to 225 in the throwing game, but make money throws. Be good on first down, take that 5-yard check down if that's all that's there. Don't turn the ball over. Make those third down throws that you need to make. Make those quick decisions. When you get a chance for a big play and a guy does come open, you got to hit him. You got to hit him. If you do get that one-on-one with Jordan Faison outside or Bo Collins or Chris Mitchell, you got to take it and you got to hit it. That's going to be it for me. And then I also think this is one of those games where his feet are going to have to play a big role. They're going to have some pressures against him. They're going to have some plays where they beat him up the middle. There's going to be some things where stuff breaks down. And what's been a big part of Notre Dame's success this season is when those moments come, he's able to make plays. And that's going to have to continue. So I'm going to have him be a game wrecker. Obviously, you talked about Jeremiah Love. I think Jadarian Price also has to be part of that conversation, Trevin. And we've seen that in a lot of the big games this season where, Jeremiah did his thing, but against Texas A&M, they needed Jeremiah and Jadarian to do their thing this year. I mean, you think about it. We've talked about it before. It wasn't Jeremiah Love that sparked that offense in that game. It was Jadarian in his 46-yard touchdown run that got Notre Dame on the board touchdown-wise and gave them, I believe, their first lead of the game. And that was obviously a big moment for Notre Dame. And then, of course, he had another big run that got called back by a penalty. But, he had that moment. And then Jeremiah Love also had – it's like Jadarian sparked him, and then Jeremiah put the game away. at the end of the game. You know, we saw him do that. We saw him against Georgia Tech, where Georgia Tech was shutting the Notre Dame offense down. And who was it that ripped off that big run to spark the offense? It was Jeremiah. I think it was counter left. Maybe it's just inside zone. Safety comes down. He's right there in the hole. It's him versus Jadarian in the hole. And Jadarian makes a miss, and he runs for 25 yards. And that was sort of that first big play for the Notre Dame offense. It sparked me. Had another 20-plus yard run in that game. You know, it was as Florida State was shutting Jeremiah Love down and holding him to 19 yards on 9 carries. Jadarian is like, all right, cool. You guys want to spend all that time trying to shut him down? I'm gonna go ahead and rip you up, and I'm gonna run for 65-yard touchdown to make it 14-3. Right? I mean, it's like that's what makes this team so dangerous. Is it's not just Jeremiah Love. You know, Jadarian's done his thing as well, and I think you're going to need all hands on deck to win this football game. You know, Jeremiah goes down against him. He's destroying USC. I think Jadarian had like 2 carries for -1 yard or something stupid like that at halftime of that USC game. Jeremiah was almost at a buck at halftime, and he ends the game with 99 yards because he comes out in the second drive of the game. So Jadarian's like, all right, cool, I got you. He runs for 100 yards in the second half. You know, has 2 30-plus yard runs, including a 30-yard touchdown run. Like, you're going to need him to also be there. That's what makes this team different. If you shut down Josh Adams in 2017, which Georgia did, Notre Dame didn't have any answers, right? If you shut down Dex in 2018 like Clemson did, Notre Dame didn't have any answers. If you shut down Audric last year, Notre Dame didn't have any answers. You shut down Jeremiah this year like Florida State did, Notre Dame's got some answers. And that's why you need Jadarian to really step up and be that guy. He's also going to have to be a game wrecker. You need both of those guys to step up and be dudes in this game. And then the final one for me, Trev, is you need somebody in the passing game to step up. Some pass catchers got to step up. I don't really care who it is. You mentioned Mitchell Evans. He's a big one. I don't care if it's Cooper Flanagan. I don't care if it's Eli Raridan. I don't care if Davis Sherwood goes off. I don't care.
Davis Sherwood,
you know,
man.
It's like I don't care if it's Chris Mitchell. I don't care if it's Jaden Greathouse. I don't care if it's Jaden Harrison. I don't care if it's Bo Collins. I don't care if it's Jaden Thomas. I don't care who it is, but somebody's going to have to game record plays. Look, we're at the point now where these teams are who they are. Notre Dame's not going to go out there and average 320 passing the next 3 games and win a title. If they win a title, they're going to win a title because they're going to win the same way they've won the last 12, right? I mean, but when this offense has been at its best, guys make game-wrecking plays in the pass game. Notre Dame didn't throw for a bunch of yards against Louisville. It didn't. Riley went 17 of 23 for 163 yards. There were 3 game record plays in that game. Jaden Greathouse's long touchdown up the seam. Jaden Harrison with the slot fade that set up Jeremiah Love's 32-yard touchdown reception on the screen. Right? It doesn't always have to be like a guy having a monster game. I don't think they have guys that could do that, but I don't know that that's needed. It's Jaden Thomas making that big 4th down catch. It's Bo Collins making that 3rd down back shoulder catch. It's Jordan Faison moving the chains on 3rd down or getting over top of the defense, or Jaden Greathouse beating him up the seam. It could be a few different guys. And honestly, I think that's kind of where it needs to be. I don't think one guy is capable of just completely taking this game over like a Will Fuller, like a Michael Floyd, like a Chase Claypool, like a Miles Boykin, like a Golden Tate, a Samardzija, Stovall, Raymond McKnight, even at times TJ Jones, even at times DeVaris Daniels. I don't know that they have that in their offense right now. I think there's guys that have the potential of being that in their careers, but they just haven't been that. We're 13 games into the season. So unless somebody just has a breakout game in game 14, what has made this receiving core good when they've played well is this guy catches 2, this guy catches 3, this guy catches 4, this guy catches 1, but it went for 25 yards and was a touchdown or set up a touchdown. They're going to need game-wrecking plays from the pass catchers. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a guy. I think it needs to be multiples. We've seen games this year where Jaden Thomas had like 1 catch for 5 yards or 8 yards. And you look at session like, oh, Jaden. But I'm like, yeah, but they were down 7-0 and it was 4th and 5. And when he had his 1 catch, you know, I mean, he had 1 catch, I think, against Indiana, right? And it only went for 6 yards, but it was a touchdown that put him up 14-3. It could be that. You need game records step up. And we've seen games where Jaden Greathouse will have 2 catches and they were both 3rd down conversions. And it's just that, you know what I mean? But I do think at some point in time, somebody has got to make a couple big plays in the pass game. I do think that is a must. I don't think you can wait till the fourth quarter to get your first big passing play against Georgia the way you did Indiana. I think it's going to have to be more like Louisville, more like some of these other games where, Army, where you hit that big play early to kind of say, hey, guys, you're not going to be able to just load the box on us today. So I think that's going to be a big piece of this, Trev, is, move the chains, have those big clutch plays. Somebody or a couple somebodies need to step up with some big plays, whether it's Mitchell Evans, whether it's Chris Mitchell, whether it's Jaden Greathouse, Bo Collins. I don't care. Jaden Harrison. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's one of the backs out of the backfield. 40 yards is 40 yards. You know what I mean? Like, they need that. They're going to need that in the pass game, especially in the first half if they're going to win this football game. I think that's an absolute must. Absolute must. I don't care if the yards are $185 or 215, Trev. It's not about the yards. It's about the plays. The big plays that spark this offense and get them going. Because if you can hit a couple of those early, 25-yard gain here, 40-yard gain there, that takes a lot of that pressure off the run game and makes Georgia say, okay, are we really sure that we want to keep doing this? We really sure can we keep doing this? And that's going to be a big key. On top of, like you mentioned with Riley, hit those 3rd and 6s. Just, you only need 7. Take those 1st and 10 check downs to get you 5-6 yards as opposed to trying to make a play and lose 5 or get 0. Those things are important, but somebody's going to have to step up and make some big plays in this game, Trev. Going to have to make and big plays, meaning important big plays, 3rd and 5, but also some literal big plays. You've got to be able to beat Georgia down the field. Have to. And we're going to see if who it is. I don't know who it's going to be. Or if anybody will, but that's going to be a big part of this one. Big part of this one. Anything else on that? And when it comes again, and make sure that your offensive line has to make sure that none of the Georgia defensive linemen become game wreckers.
Yeah, 100%.
That's another piece.
The only other thing that I have to add, and this is for the offense as a whole, because I know we're about to transition into the 2 transfer portal pickups that they got. But Notre Dame has had, if you go up on Georgia, right? Because that is a possibility, right? Like, let's also not disguise the fact that this Georgia defense has played inconsistent and they're rolling out a first-time ever starter in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. So it's not beyond this realm of possibility that Notre Dame jumps out to a lead. If you do, don't go into this shell of like, okay, now time to just not lose, because they've done that at moments throughout this year. They jumped out and scored 21 straight points against Louisville and then had 60 total yards of offense between the 2nd and 3rd quarter, right? And so make sure that you keep your foot on the gas. This is a team that has came down from 17-0 down, 28-0 down. Georgia's not going to quit. They came back in the SEC championship game with that backup quarterback. So if you get a lead on Georgia, just continue to run your offense. Do what continued to work. If it's tempo, continue to run tempo. If it's a certain look, if it's certain post-snap switches, if it's a certain personnel grouping, continue to do that. Don't just go into this shell of your offense of like, okay, we think we have a good enough defense. And I bet Texas thought they had a good enough defense. I bet Alabama thought they had a good enough defense. I bet Georgia Tech thought they had a good enough lead. So no matter what the score is in the game, it's really hard to come back on a team when they also continue to score points. Because what's the biggest common theme in those? Georgia outscored Georgia Tech 21-10 in the 4th quarter. Georgia outscored Alabama in the second half, some ridiculous score. I forgot what it was. Math isn't really mathing for me. Right,
they were up 28-0 in the first half. The second half, it was 27-11 in the second half.
Yeah.
But after the first quarter, they outscored Alabama 34-20 after the first quarter.
So, to your point, thank you for those stats. Gotta keep the foot on the gas, because this is a team that will not quit. There's one. We've talked about how consistent they've been at times and how they will not quit playing until the clock hits 0. And that's something that I have to tip my hat to Kirby Smart, because there's teams out there that they get down a little bit and they're like, okay, well, we tried. So keep the foot on the gas, man. That's my last thing.
This year, Georgia at one point in time, I'm going to go through all these games because this is going to absolutely back up your point, Trevor. They trailed Georgia Tech 17-0 at halftime. They trailed Florida 13-6 at halftime. It was 10-3. Georgia scores to make it 10-6. They go down the field, I think got a penalty, and kick the field goal to make it 13-6 at halftime. They were against Mississippi State, only led 13-10. They blew them out after that, but they fell behind 3-0 early. That wasn't as big of a one as some of the other games were. Tennessee, we talked about this one against Tennessee. They trailed Tennessee 10-0 in the first quarter. Tennessee had a 10-0 lead on Georgia, and Georgia came back and won that game by 2 touchdowns. We talked about the Alabama game. They led 28-0. Kentucky had a 9-3 third quarter lead on Georgia. They've trailed in a lot of games, in several games by double digits.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like the Bama game was a fluke and we never saw that again. They trailed Georgia Tech 17-0 at halftime. Tennessee, a playoff team, 10-0 at the end of the first quarter and won by 2 touchdowns. They outscored Tennessee 31-7 after the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, you jump up on them early, pedal to the metal. Because it's almost like Georgia's like, now we got them where we want them. You know what I mean?
I mean, honestly, man,
that's how they've played this year. It's like, oh, you think you're good now, right? You're gonna let up a little bit, and now's when we roll. And that's what makes this team a championship contender. Because it doesn't, like, they don't get phased. 99. There's 134 teams in college football. Like 130 of them would have quit after Bama went up 21-0, much less 28. Just would have quit. Just. All right, it's not our day. Bama's going to kill us. That's like for Georgia, it's like, okay, now it's time to play, guys. And they just kept coming. Same with the Georgia Tech game. It's like, hey, man, this is not our day. You know, it's all good. Don't worry. We're still playing in the SEC championship. We still write our own ticket. If we win against Texas next week, we're still in the college football playoff. This game doesn't really cost us a championship game, although they clearly wanted to win. But they just kept battling. And, you know, that's what this team is going to do. You're absolutely right. And we're going to have a lot of talk about starting fast and finishing in our keys to victory, which will be next week. But you're absolutely right. But that's also where game wreckers come into play. All right, Georgia's heating you up. Who's going to step up and make a play? Right? And who's going to spark you that lead? Who's going to make the play to make sure that you count? You jump up to a 13-0 lead. Their offense goes back down the field, scores. Now all of a sudden it's 13-7. Do you answer? We've seen Notre Dame do that at times this year. Navy did that, made it 14-7. What did Notre Dame do? Went right back down the field and scored. All right. Army did that. What did Notre Dame do? Went right back down the field and scored. You're going to need that in this game, and then you're going to need it again, and you're going to need it again, and you're going to need it again because this Georgia team will not quit. They will not quit. Don't care what you say. They are not going to quit. You'd be up 21-0 at halftime. They're going to be like, well, yeah, but Notre Dame's better than Bama and Georgia Tech. Nope. They're going to keep coming. Because they want to win a championship, just like Notre Dame wants to win a championship. So I love that point you made, Trev, because there will be no quit. There will be no quit in this football team. And then we got to find out what if Notre Dame falls behind early? Can they be a team that comes back and rallies? We don't know the answer to that because they've never really been put in that situation. I mean, I think their biggest deficit all season was 7 points. Right? In the game they lost, their biggest deficit was 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of their biggest deficits of the season was 7-0 to Stanford, and then they outscored them the rest of the game
49-0. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying. The biggest deficit to A&M was 3.
Yeah, biggest one to Louisville was 10.
No, yeah, 7
or 7. Sorry,
7.
Sorry.
And they went right, like to your point, they went right down the next possession and scored a touchdown to make it. The difference in the Stanford game is they actually had a possession where they didn't score after going down. That was the only time I remember them having that happen to them, where the other team took a lead and they didn't immediately take it back. Georgia Tech was a game where they were down 7-0 early and then went right down to actually Georgia Tech scored on the last play of the first quarter to go up 7-0. And then Notre Dame took the first drive of the second quarter, 75 yards on 14 plays, took 8 minutes off the clock and tied it up 7-0 or 7-7. Right. So, I mean, that's all this Notre Dame team has had to come from behind. They never trailed against Navy. They never trailed against Florida State. They never trailed against Virginia. They never trailed against Army. They never trailed against USC. They never trailed against Purdue. They never trailed against – I don't think they trailed against Miami, Ohio. Or did Miami, Ohio score? Yeah, 3-0 against Miami, Ohio. And then, so you trailed by 3 in that game. This is not a team that's been down a whole lot. Georgia has been, and they know what it's like to be down big and what is needed to come back. So this is going to be a 60-minute game, Trev. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.